Well, I'm very excited to be meeting all of you.
We are too.
Highlight of the week.
So my kids have questions. Do you want them to ask you the questions, or do you want to give a brief about you? How do you want to do this?
Well, what do you guys prefer? I'm happy to be guided by the questions, but if you guys want to know a bit about me, I can share that too.
Okay, I think they have some amazing questions.
All right.
So we're going to start and say your name.
I'm Brody.
Can you hear him? He's kind of soft-spoken.
Sorry, can you just repeat yourself? The connection's coming in and out.
Brody.
Hi, Brody.
That's your question.
Did you need to travel to become a behavioral scientist?
So you don't normally need to, but for what I wanted to do, I come from a city in Western Canada called Calgary, and we didn't really have a lot of people that were doing exactly what I was interested in. So they were doing a lot of work with sports teams, which was really exciting. So they'd work with sports teams to figure out how to make their performance better. For example, if an athlete was having trouble scoring goals, working with them so that they could get over any stress they were having around that and perform better. But what I was really interested in was how do we get people, so groups like you guys or your parents, actually being active and involved in exercise. And so for that, I did move around a lot just to study with people that I wanted to study with that I thought would be the best in that area. But normally a lot of people don't. So a lot of people stay at home and have great schools at home that they can do all their
Right.
I'm getting some feedback.
Are you?
Yeah, it's going a bit weird.
Are you still getting it?
Yeah, it's. Let's try that.
Maybe mute your microphone while they're asking and then I'll mute mine while they're while you're talking. See if that works. Okay, go ahead.
All right. My name is Wade, and my question is,
Nice and loud.
what are the pros and cons about being a behavioral scientist and helping with the Invictus Games?
The pros for me is that, as you guys would have seen, there are lots of countries involved. So I don't get to go to all the countries, but I get to go to the countries that have the games. So I got to go to Australia last month, and I get to visit some of the countries, and I get to meet a lot of the competitors and their families. So I'm always being inspired by people. The cons are that, like with a lot of my work, they're all over the world. And so I need to make sure I'm awake when they're awake. And so sometimes my days start at midnight because that's when people in Europe are getting into work. And then I get an hour or two of sleep. And then I have to come into the office because it's daytime here in Los Angeles and I have to put in my day of work. And then I go home and have dinner. And then I have to get back online because Australia is waking up and getting to work. So the cons are just trying to manage all the people in the different time zones and still trying to get sleep. But not everyone works with people in different time zones. That's just the way it happened for me because I was interested in the games. So people definitely have choices about that.
All right, that is cool. Now, Maddox speaking for Will because Will has laryngitis. So that's Will. Why did you become a behavioral scientist?
Oh, sorry. So can I just say, it's why did I become a behavioral scientist? So for me, it's, you know, when you find something super, super interesting, and this is going to sound very, very silly, but you know when you really, really like something, and anytime you don't have to do something else, you're reading up on that thing. And so for me, that's what this is. When I think about, and I look at the world and I see someone who's doing a lot of exercise and someone else who isn't, we all know how good it is to be active and how much we like it when we feel good and we're healthy, but for some reason people don't do it. And that keeps me interested, and that's the thing that I'm always wanting to read up on, even when I'm not at work and when I'm home. I'd rather do that than watch TV. So I think when you find that thing that really keeps you excited and makes you want to do it all the time, then you figure out a way to do that. And so when I was really interested in that, and I knew that I could be a behavioral scientist and always ask those questions and answer those questions for myself, that's what I decided to do.
That's awesome. We do a lot with Genius Hour and Passion Projects in school. So it's trying to get to realize that is passion. When you can't stop thinking about it. Okay. Tatum.
My name's Tatum. Did you decide to be behavioral scientist because of the Invictus Games? And if not, why did you decide?
So I decided a long time before. When I was little, I used to do a lot of sports. I was a competitive swimmer, and then in high school I used to do a lot of rowing. And I was really interested in like the motivation, why some people were training more than others. But then I couldn't really find my thing. I was always interested in different questions, but again, while I knew it was something that I was really excited about, I couldn't find the question that made me actually want to put all of my time into one thing. And when I heard about the Invictus Games, for me, it was seeing that there were all these people that really wanted to be involved in sport, and seeing how do we get people involved and how do we make sure they get the best experience possible and that their recovery is as good as possible, because they really deserve it. That to me was so exciting of a question that I said, I have to be involved with this. And so I think before I was saying, you know, I'm going to get all this training, but who knows if I'll actually stay as a scientist, because you can get all the training and you can do other jobs. You can work with companies to try and figure out how people buy products. You can work at gyms and, you know, develop programs there. But when I heard about the games, I said, that's something I want to do, and that's a question I want to answer. So that kept me involved.
Okay, give me a thumbs up. Is muting helping the feedback? Okay. All right. Taylor.
Still kind of bad when you guys speak. So I might be able to ask you guys to yourselves.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Taylor, and why have you decided to work with the Invictus Games instead of any other organization that helps people with disabilities?
So I actually, I do work with a lot of different organizations. Here I'm new to the US and Los Angeles, so right now it's just the Invictus Games. But I used to do a lot of work with kids sport organizations and a lot of work with different disability groups. But for me, what is exciting about the Invictus Games is the first part is getting to interact with people from all these different countries. Like to now say that I have really good friends in countries like Romania or Denmark, and know that if I were to visit those countries, I have friends there and could stay with people there. And that but the other key piece for me is that we're still trying to figure out what it is, but I'm sure even in the videos, you saw like the games are really, really special. There's something happening there where it's really night and day when you speak to someone before they start training. And then when you speak to someone after the games, it's like their entire lives have changed. And we're trying to figure out what is that ingredient, because I mean, if we could figure that out and help other people who aren't involved in the games, that would be pretty amazing. So I think that's why I've started focusing in on it, because they've figured something out that's working really well. And this is what is exciting about being a behavioral scientist, is now I have to figure out what is it that they're doing well and how do we help other people do that.
Okay, that is so interesting. It's that finding that little piece of magic in there. All right, Kaden, nice and loud.
My name is Kaden, and what
other jobs have you had before becoming a behavioral scientist?
So this is actually all I've ever done. I mean, in university, in the summers, I worked at HMV, and I feel like that doesn't even exist anymore. So that was where you bought CDs. um, and I used to tutor people to help make some money. I used to tutor people in French. But this is really, as soon as I learned about it, and I learned about it really early in university, this was all I wanted to do. So it's really all I've done. And if you decide that research specifically is what you want to do, there are a lot of opportunities towards the end of high school and from the beginning of university where you can start working with different scientists to start learning what to do and get paid to do that. So I was able to start having this as a job from the beginning. But it took a lot of school, so that's really just been my life. It's it.
Yeah, they don't understand that yet. They'll get there. All right, Jake.
Hi, I'm Jake. How did you become curious about being a behavioral scientist?
So I think like a lot of people get inspired by what's around you. So first off was from when I was an athlete, and you know, when people are really competitive athletes and they're really at a high level, the actual physical part and how they differ in terms of their fitness, it's not that different between people. If you have a runner in lane 4 and versus runner in lane 5, they're probably pretty similar. What starts to make people different is the mental aspect of their performance, how committed they are to their training, how they deal with disappointment. And so I became really interested in that psychology piece. And then within my life, I was seeing a lot of people and in society as a whole that we're seeing a lot of diseases and things like diabetes that we know being active can really, really help and prevent people from being sick. And the question, I saw it with my own family and with my cousins and uncles and aunts, was that even though they knew that, they still weren't doing it. And it made me kind of angry. So I wanted to learn how to help other people exercise so that they could be healthier. And so that helped make the decision for me.
Yes, I know it's good. However. No. All right, Shannon.
I'm Shannon, and my question is why do the Invictus Games happen in different places each time?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Why do the Invictus Games happen in different countries each time?
Okay. So in that way, they're kind of like the Olympics. By having them in different places, they're really hard to host and they cost a lot of money. So this way it's not all on one group to do all the organizing and pay and cover all the costs, because it's literally millions and millions of dollars. The other piece is so that each country, if you think about the fact especially that the competitors are military personnel, they're all really proud of their countries and they're proud of their flags. And so by going to different countries, that gives them the opportunity to show off their country. So we've had it in the UK, and there all of the British military personnel got to be really proud and show off their country. And then this last time in Australia, they got to see all of us learning about Australia. So it's a good way to spread the work, but also help people feel proud of their countries and for other people to learn about different countries.
Okay. So next, Jada.
I'm Jane, and my question is, when you started studying Invictus Games, this was the hardest thing I've gone through.
Did you hear that?
So what was the hardest thing I had to do?
Yeah.
So I was telling your teacher this story, but the hardest thing I had to do is get people to let me do it. Because what happened was I was still a student when the games started. And if you can imagine, it's these games that at that time were happening in London, so in the UK, on the other side of the ocean, that were headed by a prince. And I said, this is really important work. I want to do it. And people said, you're crazy. You're never going to be allowed to do it. So the hardest part for me was slowly over a few years, continuously reaching out to people and putting myself out there and trying to meet people in order to make that happen. And a lot of times it seems to be, no matter whether you're a behavioral scientist or you're in business, it's always about the person you are, the relationships you build, and taking the time to really get to know people and make them see that you're in it for the work and not in it for yourself. And so, especially because of the profile of the games, because it was so popular, because there were people like Prince Harry involved, you really had to spend time. And I really had to spend time to show that I was dedicated to the research, that I was good at what I did, but also that that I was something that they would want to be involved with and partner with for the games.
I absolutely love that. I say that yes, I teach them, writing, math, whatever. But we work so much on character building in here, and teaching them every day to say goodbye, eye contact, and simple little things like engaging in conversation. And so there's a lot of character building in our classroom, and something even like this, preparing thoughtful questions, and not yes or no questions, and actually engaging and having a conversation back and forth. And I told them that to take them farther in life than anything out of a textbook.
Yeah, 100%. Sorry.
Yeah.
Follow up with that, like with the games, I think you guys can all imagine how popular they are. And I mean, they have all the big television channels from every country that show up to cover them. And so when I work with the games, I was speaking with people, and they get, somewhere between 3 to 5 emails a day from different scientists wanting to work with them. So it is and those are all really, really good scientists. So sometimes it is those character pieces and showing people that they can trust you that really make the difference.
Okay. Nora.
Hi, I'm Nora. And does your family support you with the games? And how?
So it's, does my family support me?
Yeah. Oops. You're muted.
Yes. So I'm the only child. And unfortunately, since I left to do university, I haven't lived in the same city as my parents. But thankfully, technology has become very good. And so my parents have been super, super supportive. First off, by helping me and giving me the support to stay in school so that I could become a scientist. But also, one of the key things they do is sometimes, and I'm sure you guys all have this scenario, sometimes things can be frustrating, or you're not getting it, or you're not getting the results you want, even though you're putting in hard work. And having someone who's on the other end of the phone that I can talk to and say whatever I want to say, and they're not going to judge me, and they're just going to let me work through things, are really, really important. And then with the games, it's, I think, not a lot of people do behavioral scientist work. Not a lot of people might know about the games. And so I'm sure if you can imagine going to your parents and saying, this is what I'm going to do. And if they don't know about it, it might be hard for them to know how to support you. And so what I did really appreciate is they worked really, really hard to learn about the military, to learn about sport, to learn about Invictus. and so that they could learn what I was doing and how to help me. And so sometimes now they'll even send me articles or send me videos of stuff they think I'll find interesting. So it's kind of both of us working. But yeah, it's more, I think, the time and the listening that's really important.
Okay. Matt, I give your other question.
I'm mad and my question is,
What do you enjoy
enjoy
most about
having
having a job at
this
Games?
So it's the question, what do I enjoy most about the game? This last Games in Sydney was my third Invictus Games, and there have been 4. So the first thing that I really enjoy is having been at the events and being able to see how it's changed and got bigger, because it's so much fun to see something go from an idea to reality and then see it become this massive, massive important thing. But the other thing I really enjoy is, because it was my third Games, everyone there are now my friends. And so it's a week of all day, from my meetings start at 6 a.m. and they go until midnight, of just being around my closest friends. And so that part's really, really exciting for me. And so it's almost, for me, really, really sad when the games are over, because then we all get on a plane and we go home. And so I'm already counting down to the next games, which will be in the Netherlands in 2020.
So all my family, so I might have to go. We might have to talk. I might be that teacher that goes with, and yeah, we do something. I'm gonna put my phone cap on. All right. Next. Max.
My name is Max. Do you enjoy behavioral science in life?
So I do enjoy being a behavioral scientist. And I think the reason is because I think lots of us always have lots of questions about the things we enjoy. How do things work? How do we make it better? I wonder what would happen if this were the case, or what would happen if we added this piece. And as a researcher and as a scientist, I get to actually ask those questions, but not only do I get to ask those questions, I then get to do the work and answer those questions. So for example, with the games, if I weren't a behavioral scientist, I would watch it on TV and say, you know, this is super interesting and I'm really passionate about this, but I wouldn't be able to do the work to then answer my question, which was, what is that secret puzzle piece or ingredient that the games have found? Whereas because I'm a researcher, I get to say, I wonder what that piece is, and actually do the work and answer the question. So that's what I enjoy.
Okay. Who's next?
Hi, I'm Aiden. And my question is, how did behavioral science impact the participants in this game, in your opinion?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
Okay, come up a little closer. Yeah, just say it. Come a little closer. There you go.
How does behavioral science impact participants in this game, in your opinion?
So how does the science impact the games? So it's actually really, really exciting, because this last games was my third games. What we get to do is we get to get the results from a games and then go back to all the countries and say, this is what you should be doing. So for example, family were never really supposed to be a big part of the games. And then they saw that families were actually really important to people's sport and their recovery. And when I was working on some of the research, we saw that what family wanted was to be more a part of the games, even before the games happened when they were in the countries. And they gave me ideas of the things that they wanted. And so after the last games in Toronto, I went back to some of the countries and I said, what can you do? And how can we brainstorm getting the families involved? So how can we bring that science and that finding back to the games? And so at this games, what we saw was that a lot of the countries did that. And so they had barbecues for the family members so that they could meet each other. Because for a lot of the families, you know, their lives are changing too. Their father or their child or their husband or wife is might no longer be able to do some of the things they were able to do, or there might be a lot of stress at home because of doctor's visits. And so they also need to recover and have time to connect with other people. And so that was an example of us being able to use that research to make their experiences and the games better.
All right, I have a few boys that need to say goodbye because they have a basketball game. So say goodbye, boys. Good luck. Okay, bye.
Good luck. Bye.
Bye. And you guys, I have a Thursday note for you. But okay, we're gonna go on. We're gonna go on with the next question. Where are we? Yep. So go ahead and say that question.
My name is what year did you start helping in this game?
So she said 2 years ago.
And then my question is, are you interested in any other subjects in this game?
So the question, am I interested in other things besides the games? I think I missed a first question. Okay, things besides games. So actually in July, I started working at a hospital here in Los Angeles, and it's a cancer center. And so what we're doing is seeing how can we take some of the information about how exercise can help people who are recovering from an illness or an injury, and how can it help their families, and bringing it to people who might be recovering from cancer, or to help people so that it might help prevent some people from getting sick with cancer. So now we're starting to take what we're learning from the games and from the military group and bring it to other people who might not be involved in Invictus or might not be in the military.
All right. Noah. Speak really loud, in the back.
Hi, I'm Noah, and my question are the people in this game, especially in the branches of ground forces, or are a lot of pilots?
So it's about the different. Yeah, that's a really great question. These are all really great questions. Actually, we see it divided across different branches of the service. And what's actually really interesting is the competition that happens there, because people within different branches really feel strongly about their branch of service. And so people might bring their branch's flag, or they might stick around, hang out with people from their branch more, and have competition between the branches as well as between the countries. So that's another level of military sport that's really interesting.
Logan, ready?
I am Logan, and Invictus games help the people that are hurt.
I'm sorry, do you just mind repeating that?
How do the Invictus games help the people that are hurt?
So how do the games help? Yeah, all right. So there are 3 pieces that we've found so far. The first is just their fitness. So by being involved with the games, they're motivated to start participating in sport, which means they're getting active. So they're building more muscle, some people. And the reason that's as important is especially if you have an amputation, like a leg amputation, how you are comfortable walking in the prosthetic might change based on your fitness. Another really key piece is the fact of, like you guys, about having friends and being part of a community. So a lot of people, especially if they were injured in combat, the way it worked more recently is they'd get injured and then they'd wake up and they were in a different country and they didn't get to see their group and their family again. And they were all really close when they were in combat. So what happens is they're once again part of a group and part of a military group, which is really important. They feel like they're part of a family again. And then the third key piece is the fact that they now have this goal, which helps them be more active again, be motivated. And then as they do little things, so for example, a lot of people haven't done the sport before, but now they've done and they've survived their first wheelchair basketball practice. Like, how would that make you feel? That would probably make you feel pretty good about yourself, right? So then as you start feeling better and better about yourself, that gives you more confidence to try other things, right? So if you say, I can do wheelchair basketball, maybe I can also be good at wheelchair rugby. And then if I can do those, maybe I can also be good at other things in my life. So for a lot of people, as they build that confidence, they can take it to other parts of their life and they can be more confident. And we see them being more confident in order to get jobs, to build relationships with people in their community, to maybe be involved with their family a bit more. So those are the 3 key pieces: that fitness piece, that family, social piece, and then also just that confidence and how they feel about themselves.
Okay, we have two more questions.
Hi, and why?
So which classes?
Yes.
So this always makes my mom laugh because I don't know about you guys. I always enjoyed math at school, but I wasn't really good at it. And when I finished school at the end of grade 12, I said, I am never going to do math again for the rest of my life. And now she laughs because at the end of each day, she says, what did you do? And I said, I did a lot of math today. I had to take classes to learn, how do we build a study, but then once we have all these numbers about how people are doing and whether they're doing better or not, we have to analyze them and say, is this an improvement or not? Or are they actually getting better enough that we can see the games are working? So I had to take classes in that and statistics. And then I also had to take classes in the behaviors and human behavior. So in learning why we act the way we do. And that was really interesting, right? Like, why do we make certain decisions and how would we, what would impact whether, it doesn't even have to be an exercise. Why, let's say you're at the store, you'd buy one cereal versus another cereal. So all those little pieces of learning why we think the way we do. And then I'm trying to think what else. I took a lot. I also took classes in Italian because school has to be fun and I wanted to learn how to speak Italian. So it didn't impact becoming a behavioral scientist, but it made me happier. So I'd say those pieces like psychology and human behavior, and then also learning how to design research and what to do with the numbers when you have them. So the moral of that was that now I do math every single day and my mom laughs at me every single day.
I love that mindset. We try to kids have that too. Yeah. And I love the fact that school is supposed to be fun. Like I tell guys that, don't I? Every day. I gotta have some fun. So I love that you took Italian. Jace.
My name is Jace, and my question is, did you have to be established within helping in the Invictus Games?
Did you what?
Right or no? Did you have to be established within helping in Invictus? Or did I say
How did she get established?
Yeah,
How did you get established in helping with the Invictus Games? That's good, Jace.
Yeah, so first of all, I started because, like I said, it seemed everyone telling me there's no way you're ever going to be able to get involved. I knew this was an area like how do we help the military people, like people in the military who are injured through sport, was something that I thought was really interesting. And so I started doing research in that. And so by doing research, I was running studies that were looking at what makes a good sport experience. You know, how would we build the best program possible? So I started running studies that would answer those questions. How do we build a program where people actually want to be involved and stay involved? And then what happened was, as I started building that background, I started reaching out to Invictus, doing the things that I mentioned before, like letting them know through I'm going to change that. I started reaching out and saying, you know, this is what I'm doing, and I think it would be really interesting to do this with Invictus. And what happened is, like I said, it was about building trust. So we met and talked on the phone for about a year before they agreed to even let me attend the games. But it really was about them trusting my work and trusting that I was in it for the right reasons, especially because of the people that are involved in the games. They really wanted to be protective that I wouldn't be hurting any of the competitors through my research. And so as they saw the work that I was doing, that I built that foundation that I could do work in terms of sport and the military, and then once they saw that I was someone that they could trust, then they were willing for me to be a part of it.
Yeah, that is so cool. You never gave up on your dream. I mean, that in itself is awesome. And then you built up that relationship over time is another thing. I think this generation doesn't understand as well, because they're in such the instant gratification mode, and you have to work things you love. How long it takes to get it? Like, you have to keep going. And no is not no. It's just, okay, let's divert it this way or this way, or yeah, rethink it. Try it this way. So the message you're sending these kids is absolutely fantastic.
Good. And that part, I'm glad, because that part is really important. I think no matter what you do, whether you're behavior scientist or not. So for example, when they reached out to me and said, okay, we're finally willing to meet with you, they were going to be in a city that was 4 hours away from the city that I was living. And part of that was them challenging me to think, how important are we to you? Like, you've been talking to us for a while. And so I got on a train because this was my dream, with my own money for 4 hours, and stayed at a hotel just to meet with them for a half-hour coffee. But you're showing people that they're important to you, that you're passionate about the topic, and that you are willing to put in the work, I think is really important.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I cannot tell you enough, and please relay the message to Prince Harry that Swan River School would love to adopt an Invictus team, or whoever needs to happen. We are that school for him. And yeah, we have 167. I think we're up to 167 students. So you get some pretty cute cards from us. But so what do you guys say?
Well, thank you guys. This was really exciting for me, and I was happy to share. And You guys have my email if any other questions pop up. But thank you for your questions. They were really, really great. And it was fun for me to share about the games and to share with you guys, because I mean, what I'm doing now, I never knew that I could do when I was in school. And so thank you so much for spending time with me today.
Yeah, and you taking time out of your busy schedule. We appreciate it. It's really great.
Well, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
And we might do it again, so, you know, yeah, they're all for it, so we might have to do this again.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, well, I know you're traveling here soon, so have safe travels.
Thank you.
And we will keep in touch, and either on Twitter or I'll text you pictures of us and just keep you updated on your new biggest fans. We'll keep tabs on you.
Sounds great. Yeah, let's keep in touch.
Okay, thank you. See you later.
Thank you.